Thanks, Dave. Welcome, everybody, to the Junior Leader Innovation Symposium. We are ecstatic that you're here. I'm going to give a short talk and then introduce Admiral Richardson. But I just want you to know, nobody said, hey, do this just to do it. See if you can get people to come out and then get that check of the block and get it done. We have you here because we want you to start to think about innovation, and we want to show you how a channel for your ideas has been created, is in the process of being created, and how what you think and the ideas you have about innovation and moving things forward really matter. My tasking from Admiral Harvey is to, his guidance to me was, we've got all these great, very smart people in the Navy and the Marine Corps, and how do we use their talents, their energies to get new ideas and pull the Navy forward? Instead of paying somebody outside the organization to tell us what we need to do, what about the people that are in the organization? What about the ones that can identify fleet capability gaps right now? And that's all of you. So next slide. So I want to give you a little bit of a background on our previous innovation campaign to date. In March, we did the Maritime Innovation Symposium, and we got a lot of actionable things out of it. And that's the other part. If you've got a terminal in front of you, by all means, be typing in it. Be typing your thoughts. Hey, this speaker's really boring. That's fine, whatever you want to do. But that's one way that we capture the things that we're putting out here. The idea here is to get real actionable ideas and things out of this innovation symposium that we can move forward with. Not just to get you here, but to pull some information out of you. 4 things we pulled out of the Maritime Innovation Symposium in March. Refining and defining a process. I got to brief CNO on our proposed process last month. We're getting closer on that, and I'll talk about it later in the brief. Pushing innovation into the classrooms. Looking at getting into real innovative thought into a lot of our curriculum, and how do we do that? Developing a network of innovators, finding people who are interested in it. We already plucked a few people from our last Maritime Innovation Symposium that now work part-time here at NWDC and help us with innovation. And then finally, what's the role for leadership? Writing, talking, publishing. As I said, Admiral Richardson's going to give a great talk, one of our innovative leaders looking forward into how we start to think about these kind of things. And you're going to learn a little bit today how to get yourself published, which I think is important. Next slide. So there's a book called Agents of Innovation by John Kuhn, and what it talks about is the Navy General Board and how in the before World War II we actually had a board that reported Secretary of the Navy at the time that looked at new ideas and decided the ones that were important enough to continue forward with. Back then, we were very worried about war with Japan. We were worried about developing capabilities in the Pacific. This board actually came up with the, was presented the idea of the floating dry dock, which now you see floating dry docks all over Norfolk. But in World War II, the floating dry dock was a huge enabler, which allowed us to do this incredible island hopping campaign and establish ourselves all the way across the Pacific. This Navy General Board was able to do that. And one interesting comment by Kuhn in the book is, a lot of people say, well, we can't get any new stuff because fiscal environment, we're cutting back on money, I don't even have enough copy or paper right now. But actually, some of the best innovation that we've seen has been done in times of great fiscal constraint, because we needed to think about how to do better with the things we have and not just rely on some super new whiz-bang thing to come down the line. And what you'll also see, when you think of how to better fight with what we have, we come up with new tactics, we come up with new ideas, and we make what we have better. So really that's going to be my challenge for you, is first to define what the problems are out there, and secondly, to start thinking about some solutions that we can move out of. There's a book by Franz Johansson, and I've got all these books up here on the podium if you'd like to look at them during the break. This book is called The Medici Effect. This goes back to the Renaissance. And the power of the Renaissance was all these different people from different backgrounds and different fields, if you will, getting together and having these incredibly revolutionary ideas. So what he talks about in the book is there's two types of ideas. There's really a directional idea, which is let's say two aviators get together and they figure out a better way to operate around the ship. Okay, that's a directional idea. Two people from the same field have come up with something, and that's going to move the ball forward a little bit, and that's fine. But what he really focuses on are intersectional ideas. When you get people from different fields, different disciplines together, and they come up with real game-changing ideas that move the ball forward. That's an intersectional idea, which I think is interesting. That's why we have people here from all different backgrounds today. We're looking for these kind of intersectional ideas. Next slide. So I talked about developing a channel for innovation. This is what I got to present to CNO last month, and I'll walk you through this just a little bit. If you start off on the far left side, you look out and you see a new future operating environment. Different problems, different types of strategy required, whether you're thinking of air-sea battle or single naval battle, which describes how the Navy Marine Corps will fight in the future. There are different environments. There's opportunities, new ways with new technology, new ways with old technology, okay? Well, these ideas and these concepts that come out of this are going to then be presented to what we're calling the CNO Advisory Board. This is a group of people, once again, an intersectional group of people that take these new concepts and look at them and do an initial cut for CNO on what they think would be important for the Navy. Okay? A lot of these will be higher end things, but some will be lower end things as well if we think they have merit or value. So the flow then is going to go through NWDC to create the white paper, and then we've taken out about 8 links in the chain in between. There was a council of captains, there was a lot of bouncing around, and that's where things tend to die, right? When things get into a staffing process over and over, people with a different view, they tend to die. So the white paper is going to go directly to Fleet Forces Command and Pacific Command, so that's Admiral Harvey and Admiral Haney, for presentation to the CNO. If he approves the concept, that's going to be a strategic communication from the Navy that, hey, we found a concept that we like, and then it's going to go into a CNO action plan and eventually come into war game, testing, and those kind of things. So that's the new process to do that. CNO liked it, so we're moving out on that. And you can see some of the supporting commands down below. Next slide. Junior leaders are essential. You know, when I was briefing Admiral Burke, a 3-star, prior to talking to the CNO, he made a great point. He said, hey, if we have these new ideas, the people that are going to be using them are the people in this room. You know, when all of you are E7s, E8s, E9s, or O5s, you know, you're going to be using these concepts, these ideas that we come up with now. And you could say, well, I remember when I sat in a room and I had this great idea. So really, that's what it's all about, and that's why you're the target audience here today. You are experts with newer technology. I'm a digital immigrant. All of you in this room are digital natives. You know, when I got to fly a little bit in the Super Hornet, I was amazed at the amount of information that can be processed by aviators these days. Looking at multifunction displays, looking at multiple page displays, I could probably use the same analysis for a CIC or a Marine out in the field who's sucking down incredible ISR from a Predator or something like that. Okay, your ability to process new information and lots of information, I think, is something that we need to exploit when we design new systems. I think we did. I think that's definitely. Plus, I was talking to my college-age daughter about it, and she bragged about how she can have her cell phone here, an iPad here, be typing on her laptop, and be watching a TV show at the same time. I'm not sure about the quality of her product, but she claims it's good. Next slide. I want to talk about some junior leader innovators here for a minute. This has been done before, and this has been done in times of great fiscal constraint, not necessarily during wartime. These are innovators. Sweet Momsen, who's the father of submarine rescue, when in 1925, when he was 29 years old, he came upon a situation where a number of people were trapped inside a submarine. We realized we had no way to rescue those people. We just sat there and watched them die. Same thing was happening in 1929. He developed a breathing apparatus to help rescue people using compressed gas to get them out of submarines. It was actually successfully used in 1937 in a submarine rescue with a diving bell apparatus. So here was a very young guy who had a great idea. He didn't give up. When he first came up with his idea in 1927, 1929 time frame. He was told it's too hard, we just can't do it, thanks a lot, just go back to what you're doing. Sweet Momsen didn't give up on his idea. Captain Pete Ellis was a Marine Corps captain in the early 1900s who really is the father of amphibious warfare. He was at the Naval War College. He had a lot of experience in the Pacific. He came up with the idea of the island hopping campaign of amphibious assault. He died as a lieutenant colonel, unfortunately, in mysterious circumstances somewhere in the Pacific. Next slide. Lieutenant Commanders Thatch and Flatley, Ensign O'Hare. Thatch and Flatley are certainly famous naval aviation names. Ensign O'Hare was a Medal of Honor winner in World War II. They were flying the F-4F Wildcat, which was a grossly undermatched against the Japanese Zero. So what they came up with was a weave tactic, eventually called the Thatch weave, to where instead of flying in groups of 3 and getting all shot down, they flew in 2 groups of 2. And they developed a weave tactic, so if the Zero rolled in on one group of 2, that they would be opposed by the other group of 2 Wildcats. This was highly successful. So eventually we got more capable fighters who were able to take on the Zero. But for the first few years of the war, we relied on this tactic called the Thatch weave to go against these Zeros. During the Battle of Midway, 5 F-4Fs took on about 20 Zeros, and we lost 1 F-4F, and they shot down about 5 Zeros in the encounter. This kind of stuff works. Benjamin Isherwood is the father of steam propulsion. Just prior to just prior to the Civil War, he came up with ways to operationalize steam propulsion. He was the author of over 50 technical papers on the topic. Once again, a very young man. Next slide. Let's bring it up to the current day. Some of you may have heard of Captain Jim Carlson. He decided he was tired of carrying around about 30 pounds of maps. And if anybody's tried to page through a map in the cockpit, it is painful. Usually you can't find what you need, and time is precious. He came up with an idea, a way to put over 1,000 of these maps on an iPad, fly around, which basically now had created a GPS moving map display, a poor man's GPS moving map, if you will, in Cobra. These things are being used to that day, and this is proliferated throughout the Marine Corps. This was one guy who had an idea. I'll give another example. When I was talking to an Army guy, the Army version of the developmental squadron, they gave them all iPhones. And now the brass, the leaders initially said, well, don't give them iPhones because they'll just lose them. And then, somebody else said, well, they'll just use them to download music on them. And somebody said, well, maybe if they're downloading music on them, they might not lose them. But one guy was a security guard, and he was tired of sitting in the security shack and looking at all the monitors all the time. Developed a way he hacked into their own system, developed a way to see any security monitor on the base on his iPhone as he was walking around. So how powerful is that? Instead of sitting in a room, he's now walking around with access to all the monitors on the base. I thought that was pretty neat. Next slide. Roles and expectations. This is from my boss, Admiral Harvey. There's some very smart sailors and JOs out there who both care deeply about what they are doing and have the knowledge, insight, and experience to give us ideas that can significantly improve many fundamental aspects of how we do business today. Okay. Captain Tyler mentioned, you own the future. We want you to think about these things. We want you to write about things. We want you to debate. And we want to show you how we can energize this whole innovation fan base, if you